Hello and welcome to the Vine Life Podcast. I'm Tony Clark, your host. My special guest today is author and educator, and her name is Dorla Schlitt. Dorla has released a new book, The Adventures of the Scarlet Thread, The Promise Fulfilled. This book is a simple presentation of the profound truth of God's eternal plan of salvation through Jesus. Dorla is joined by her husband, multi-Grammy and Dove Award winner, the infamous Mr. John Schlitt. Guys, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's our pleasure, Tony. Always a pleasure talking to you.
Well, thanks. It's glad to see you. Certainly glad to see you again, John, and especially with your beautiful wife joining you today. And so we're going to talk about Dorla today. Now, Dorla, let's talk about this brand new book that you've got out. You have a great experience as an educator, is my understanding. How did this book come about, and how did being an educator help you write this book?
Well, the book came about a few years ago. In 1997, I was a volunteer at our church, and I wrote a curriculum for our Bible school. And of course, that came out of teaching and writing materials and things for the children in my class and the things we did. So that's how that relates. Being in a Christian school, public school, I had a lot of experience with children. So anyway, in 1997, I chose to write this curriculum, and it was a simpler fashion. We had 500 or so children in our on our campus, and with family groups, we call them small groups, and they heard the stories that are in the book, and with the teacher in discussion, and then they went out into the areas and did activities and things, just like a regular Bible school. But it was a little bit different in that the subject matter was a little different than you'll see in some Bible schools, vacation Bible school programs. And we took it a little further. We costumed ourselves so that the children felt like they were back in Bible times, and so they could kind of enter in more into the experience. And it was very successful. Everybody loved it, from the children right on up to the adults, because as adults, coming from all different backgrounds, some of us didn't have that background of knowing how related the Old Testament is to the New Testament. And, sometimes growing up, you just hear little pieces of the Old Testament, and you don't really know the flow of what's going on in the Bible. And so when I stepped away from children's ministry I was on staff, actually, there for about 20 years. I decided I'm going to take this back out, and I'm going to try and put it into a book form so that it can be shared with children that are maybe in elementary school, and middle schoolers, and older readers, parents with their children, or Christian schools, or as a Bible school program itself in the summer, all different ways. And another piece that was interesting about the Bible school, the VBS we did, it was a mixed age group of children, because we really believed that even the younger ones, who might not understand the whole picture, were picking up the truth of God's Word, and God would use that in their lives later as seed planted, because they just so enjoyed it, and they learned so much from it. So that's how it got to be what it is.
And Dorla, you were talking about visual presentations of Bible stories, and I've seen some of the pages of this book, and they're beautifully illustrated, by the way. But just with your experience teaching young kids, and how important is having the visuals to adaptation to learning to a child, as opposed to us older folks? We don't use visuals as much. How important, or why is that so important to a child?
it's very important for a child. It helps them to focus in, and they'll pick up things in the visuals. A lot of times when they're first starting to read, that context of the picture helps them as they process the words to get it straight in what they're actually reading. So visual content is very important. So.
And you talked in the title, I think, is the Scarlet Thread. You kind of would you like to kind of walk me through the different chapters or segments of this book? I think you've got maybe 4 segments in this book. Is that correct?
Correct. The book was written so that the reader, whether it's a child or an adult, maybe a new believer, I mean, they're reading it with their child or on their own. They begin to see that the Bible is one unfolding, continuous story. And so it shows God's love to man, and it shows his faithfulness to his word in fulfilling the promise that begins in Genesis with Adam and Eve, the fall of man, to one day send the one who would destroy the power of sin and death and restore the relationship back between God and man. And so it begins in Genesis with Adam and Eve, and then it moves forward. Now, I'm not a theologian.
Whatever that word is.
Yeah, whatever. Theologian, that's it. To, go in great depth with children. This is just 4 stories that show the flow from Genesis, then to Egypt with God's people and the Passover, and then from the Passover to the wilderness in the tabernacle and what that is explained to them, what that is, and then from the tabernacle to Rahab and Jericho. And then into the New Testament with the coming of Christ and what he accomplished through the cross, his burial, his resurrection, and the ascension.
Well, it seems like... Go ahead, John.
The 5th story is actually the sacrifice of the blood of Christ on the cross. So when you say there's actually 5 stories, the most important one is the 5th one. But the 4 are through the Old Testament. And the Scarlet Thread basically represents the fact that the blood of Christ started in the beginning of the Bible. I mean, God knew exactly what he was going to have to do before the beginning of time. But actually, after Adam and Eve, and God's God. He knows what he's doing, and we don't, and it's amazing how that works. So someone asked, well, what's Scarlet Thread stand for? It stands for the blood of Christ.
Yeah. But
and through the Old Testament all the way to the sacrifice.
And that's the adventure, is looking for what is that scarlet thread that's kind of pointing to the blood of Christ in his sacrifice and what was accomplished. In the Old Testament, it was a temporary provision. But God loved his people. He wanted to be with his people. He wanted to guide his people. He wanted them to worship him, to know him in the way that they could at that time. And so he made provision for that. And we're just calling it the Scarlet Thread through each one of the stories. And so there's clues. There's like a little red ribbon at the top of the page that gives a clue that that's important there, and helps them to see and better understand. It's...
as an outsider, I get to watch... First of all, I've watched your work for 3 years just getting this thing together. What I'm excited about is actually there's a teacher's guide that's coming out in about a month that goes hand in hand with this book, and it was designed that way from the beginning. We wanted to put the book out first and let folks see it and enjoy it, but the teacher's guide is really to help the parent or the teacher, whoever's reading that or helping the child read it. And it gives, for each chapter, it gives details on how to emphasize the chapter, like through games, through explaining it a little clearer. It's just a total package. I'm really proud of her. It really is a teaching lesson that can be used in classrooms or at homes, and I think it's just very cool.
It seems like an amazing combination. You not only have the book specifically that maybe a parent can read to a child or a teacher can read to a child, but you've also got the study guide where you can go into more in-depth teaching, maybe as a teacher. That's a fascinating combination.
There's vocabulary words. There's memory verse for each one of the stories. One for younger, one for older. There are options for extended learning, good discussion questions, looking up Bible scriptures, that skill, I'm thrilled. I just think it's a great tool to help make help them understand and take it a little further in depth.
Absolutely. And John, as you're talking about as your wife is talking, I can see the admiration in your eyes. How proud of you of Dorla in her latest creation? What type of pride is there for her?
Well, very proud. I mean, my gosh, like I said, she's taken her 3 years to write this thing, not to mention the years of going through and just having it sit on a shelf waiting to be done. She finally retired from service with the church and had the time to do it, and she jumped right into it. It's like she was dedicated to do this. And what's even more exciting, I mean, this is just one of 3 or 4 projects that I see coming out as a teaching unit, and it just how can I not be proud? I mean, she's just a hardworking little lady that gets things done and brings out a quality product. Show the book. I'm just that's just a classy rendition. As you said, the colors, the illustrations are very unique. I've never been surprised with anything she does, and this just goes right along with the quality of work she's always part of.
And Dorla, absolutely amazing illustrations. Can you talk maybe about some of the other folks that join you in this project? Maybe the illustrator. Who was the illustrator here?
Corey Miller is the illustrator, and he did just a fabulous job. He decided to do colors that would appeal to the age group. They're not comic. As you know, everybody loves comics, but a lot of books you'll see for younger children are comics, and they kind of, this is different, and will draw their attention, hopefully, to just the beauty and the message as well, for sure.
Yeah, Corey is actually an artist that has been well known through
graphic artist.
Yeah, different types of art. And it was really a blessing for us to get him, and we felt that it was important to put that much money into a project like this. So it would draw your attention to it, and just basically saying this is not a cheap project. This is for Christ. We don't want to go halfway, and very proud of the results.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, just looking at the pages and reading about it, it's definitely a professionally produced book. It's not something off the cuff. It's something that you guys have put tremendous amount of time, work, sweat labor, sweat equity. It's obvious from just looking at it. This is a professional presentation. And guys, we're just skipping ahead here, but I'll go back to some other questions. But what's the best way to purchase this book and also the study guide?
Well, there's several ways. I mean, the easiest, I guess, would be just wherever books are sold.
Mm-hmm. Amazon.
You can order it that way. I would like to see it go through her website, Nana Book, Dorla Ray.
DorlaSchlitt.com.
Thank you. Always mess that up.
Well, we're new.
Or just do it through that way, because then we know we have a closer contact with it. But whatever's convenient. We just want it out there.
Yeah.
We just want folks to see that it's available, and that the easiest way for you to get it would be, of course, through Amazon. So that would be great. We just want you all
Barnes
to
and Noble.
Yep, get a chance to see it, try it out, and I think you'll be very, very pleased.
Absolutely. I'll put all of those links below the video as well and how to order the book. But Dorla, this is not your first venture into book writing, is it? I think that for those Petra fans out there, that you wrote a devotional to one of their albums. Is that correct?
Yes. Back in
87?
Yeah, 87.
87. She wrote the This Means War Bible study.
Petra
Petra praise,
Prayer Warriors.
Prayer Warriors.
Prayer Warriors devotional.
Yeah, and that was actually before the Petra Praise albums. I mean, we always had a heart for that, and Dorla had the time to do it, and we trusted her, knowing that she has a heart for that kind of thing, and came across. So if anybody's got the Prayer Warrior devotional, she's the one that did it.
Yeah, it was a whole campaign that Petra did.
Mm-hmm.
They did we did the devotional, and then they, in their newsletters, they spoke about it, and kiddos would join the campaign. Youth groups joined. There were like 6,000 members of the Prayer Warrior campaign. And so that guys took the devotional, and each one took turns reading a devotional and recording it on a phone line. I don't know anything about how that was done at the time, but the people could call in and hear one of the guys read that particular devotional. So it was unique at the time, and it really encouraged kids to pray for their loved ones, their school, their friends, and Petra if they, wanted to. But
that was really before the internet, and that was the best way to reach as many people as possible in a convenient way.
Mm-hmm.
Guys, I know that you guys have some kids and grandkids, and obviously Dorla's experience with working with kids is probably evident in your family. You want to talk about your kids and grandkids a little bit?
Oh, I'll tell you something funny. Sometimes the teacher in me comes out.
Sometimes, give me a break. All the time.
So, it's
including when she talks to me.
Yeah.
Now, John, I'm going.
No, well, I wasn't that hard of it, but it's just funny. We have 7 grandchildren, and ranging from 22 down to 7, and we thoroughly enjoy being with them and spending time. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Obviously, and Dorla, would you like this series, this new book, and this new study guide? Would you like, looking down the road, is your dream to expand this to maybe more books and more study guides in the future?
Well, I am working on another one. We did a second. The year we did the Scarlet, it was called the Scarlet Thread back then. It wasn't the same title, but in '97. And then the following year, I wrote the Joshua Quest. And so I've been working on that. We'll see what happens with it. But it's the Hebrew name for Jesus is Joshua. So the basic idea of the book is that it takes the reader into the book of John and looks at the 7 names that Jesus calls himself. The bread of life, the light of the world, and so on. And same idea with the book, and then a teacher's guide to go with it, or educator's guide. Mm-hmm.
It's just as informative, very it's another exciting book as far as I'm concerned, with probably the same type of formula with the teacher's guide and the whole kind of thing, because it really is a teaching unit that I think would be the most appropriate in schools and Sunday schools and that kind of stuff.
Homeschooling.
Yeah, homeschooling. Mm-hmm. It's great if a parent does it with their child. That's very cool. It's more of it's not one of those. I don't think any of these books are going to be one where just the child can just sit and read it. I mean, can, but I think the full depth would be for the parent and the child together, a teaching unit that gives more depth than just the book itself.
Well, again, if you're listening to strictly a podcast, you can go to Dorla's website, and that's dorlaschlitt.com, dorlaschlitt.com. You can read more information about this book. I highly encourage you to go ahead and make the purchase and order the book, especially if you're an influencer with children. This is a fantastic product to do that. John, you got anything going on with your music, with your tour dates that you want to talk about?
Well, let's put it. I'm in a studio, and that's all I can say. We had a very busy the last 3 years, and I think this year is probably going to be busier than those. And I praise God for it. It's way beyond anything that I thought would be happening at this time in my life. So we're available. The band's available. We are, and when you're available, God's going to use you. And looks like He has plans for us. So, and that could change tomorrow. But right now, as far as this year, it looks like it's going to be a busy one for us, and I'm super excited about it.
Absolutely, and I know that your fans are as well, and fans of Dorla's as well with her new book. Again, this new book is titled The Adventure of the Scarlet Thread, The Promise Fulfilled, Dorla Schlitt. And you can go to dorlaschlitt.com, read much more information about this book and how to place the order. I highly encourage you to do that. But Dorla and John, it's been a blessing that you've come on the program today to talk about Dorla's new book.
Tony, thank you for the opportunity, buddy. I seriously thank you for your interest, and thank you for allowing us to share what's happening in our lives. I appreciate it very much.